Hey guys, thanks for joining us. This is part two of the previous video that we did of metering. I'm Josh, I'm with Indie Film Lab, and we're going to plan to do these pretty much on Tuesday, so I hope you can join us. We got a couple of guests coming up, Gabby Ruggieri and Ben Chase coming up in a couple Tuesdays from now, so just keep an eye on our page and get on our email list if you can, and we'll send these out. But so today's a part two of last week's shoot with Hannah in the studio, and we're gonna try to do more of the live shoots. We just got to figure out our format with the different cameras and everything. So, you guys can ask any of the questions as we go through this. So today, what we're gonna do is kind of go through the images I shot and how I metered for those using the digital spot meter. And we're going to kind of just look at like all the different, the technique that I used to get the metering that I did and the decisions I made, and walk through my process and the process of just metering to get a good shot. So the whole point of metering is to make sure that we get the best quality negative, like the wide range as much as we can in the negative, so that we can have the best opportunity to give you the best scan possible. So that's the whole point, is to capture as much as we can in the negative so that we get a crazy good scan. So yeah, let's start with, I'm going to show you a diagram of one of the images I shot of Hannah, and I'm going to show you kind of how this works. So let's hop over to the image. And so this is one of the images we shot. And I'm going to show you how this kind of works with the meter, the digital spot meter. So I don't know if you remember this or not, but the meter, and I'll show you this in a minute, the meter has the capability of shooting, or basically tagging, I call it tagging, but getting a reading from very small sections of the photo. So in the first section of the photo, I wanted to make sure that I meter for the shadow area. So that's where this number 6 came in. When I'm looking through the meter, it gives me a reading. And that reading is based on whatever section of the photo that I grabbed the reading from. And it's a very small circle. So this circle on the 6 indicates that I've metered for the shadow area for her hair. So I want to make sure that that falls into a part of the negative that will have detail in it. So the 6 right here, this is Ansel Adams' zone scale. 0 meaning completely black in the negative, no information, and then it works its way up to solid white, where it technically would be no information, but with film it compresses, and so you're never going to have like completely white highlights like digital. It's just going to compress, so there will be information there, as you can tell in this image. So when I got a reading from her hair, and I'll show you in the meter here, we got to turn this camera on. We got to turn that on to get the meter here in a second. But the 6, when I looked through the meter, it gave me a reading of 6. And so in my mind, I knew I wanted some detail there. So in the meter, and I'm going to show you this in a minute, in the meter I wanted to make sure that it lined up in zone 3. And then I got a reading from her forehead, and I knew that I needed that to be in zone 5. And then just to do it, I wanted to make sure that the white, because there's a major difference in these, I want to make sure that this reading here was not like way out, just insane. And what I found out was it was in this range of what the negative can do, but I'm not really worried about the highlights at all. When I'm shooting film, my main concern is to make sure that all the information is in the shadow area and not so much the highlights. So let's take a look at the meter here. Let me get this thing set up. Okay, tell me when you can see that. So this is the meter that we use. It's the Pentax Digital Spot Meter. And I'm going to kind of show you, based on what we just looked at, how that kind of worked. So when I look through into the viewfinder here, I'm not going to do it because it's kind of hard to see. But when I look through the viewfinder there, as a little circle that I can pinpoint different parts of the photograph with. So when I pinpointed her hair, it gave me a reading of 8. And so, or sorry, 6. So on this dial here, notice the Ansel Adams scale's on the meter already. So I found the 6, and if you notice here, the 6 is right here. So I want to make sure that I put the 6 in a zone that's going to have detail in it. So zone 3. So I'm going to scoot that over to 3. And then when I did a reading on her forehead, it showed 8. So I knew that in this scale, that 8 reading is going to be in zone 5. I know, and see, this is where we make decisions based on what we want. So for me, I knew that when I got a reading off of her forehead, that's going to be in the middle zone, and that's going to be in zone 5. Then looking at the 12 that I got off the wall, I already can tell you that it's already way past, and this only goes to zone 8, so there's like 2 more zones, so it's all the way out here. But in film, all this is going to compress on the highlight, so it doesn't really matter. I'm not really so worried about that. So honestly, when I'm shooting, I want, if it's in a slow situation where I can meter and then have time to shoot, I'll meter all 3 of these and just kind of make sure I'm right where I need to be. But if I'm in a faster situation, I will just meter for the shadow area and maybe just the skin tone. And then once you're familiar with what skin tone does what, you can do this really quick. You can just get a reading from her forehead and put that where you want it. So in this situation, when I got the 6 and I wanted it in zone 3, 8 in zone 5, and 12 way out here, I knew that, and with 800 speed film, so here's your ISO dial right up here. So I had ISO 800 speed film, the reading 8 in zone 5, and it gave me a reading of 2.8, 250. So that's exactly what I set my camera on, and that's exactly, this is how it came out. So what's important to note here, and with the takeaway, is to make sure that you're metering for the shadow area to get the detail. Because if I would have shot this, okay, say I would have got a reading on her on the wall, and I was like, oh, I want to make sure that 12 stays in there a little bit, and so I put the 12 like just right over here. Well, notice where the 8 now falls. The 8, which is her forehead, falls way over here, and 6 is now way over here. Now, would this came out okay? Yeah, we could have brightened it up in scanner, no problem. But like I said earlier, let's get the cleanest and the most accurate negative we can so that we can do the best job we can in scanning it and not have to fight the scanner so much. So, so let me pull this back here. So, when you're using this meter in different situations, these numbers aren't always going to be the same. If I'm outside, if I would have metered her forehead, it could have gave me a reading of 9 or 10 or 11. And then the sky could have been, way over here. So these are just specific to that studio that I'm in. And if I was outside, it'd be completely different. And so let's go back to where we were. So when I got the reading of her forehead, I put it dead center because I knew there was going to be a lot of detail in the shadow when I got the 6, and the 8 is going to be dead center. I know I already said this, but I'm just going over millions of times because that's just how it works. So if you notice the image over here, the 6 coincides with that zone, 8 and 12. So I knew I was going to have a good exposure. And now once I have it set and I have the camera set, the lighting didn't change. It is a natural light studio, so we do have some cloud coverage. So it does change a little bit, but not enough to really affect the exposure for all these. So let's just let's look at these. I have a couple of, most of these are scanned on the Noritsu, but I do have a couple from the Frontier, and we'll go through these. So image 1, I just really love this shot, how her head's tilted away from the camera, and we have just the killer hair just falling all the way out of the frame. Same kind of thing here. She has such a cool look. This is almost like she's floating. I love this shot. We got a little motion in the hair. And if you guys have any questions, just shoot some questions in the little comment section, and then
we had
we'll.
A question come in.
Okay.
From Sean Shannon. They ask, how many people use this meter? What would you have done differently with like a regular spot meter, like with a bulb meter?
So what I've learned, I'm not sure how many. I mean, Ryan Muirhead showed me this meter years ago, and when it clicked with me, I was like, oh, I'll never ever want to use another meter again. I'm not sure how many people actually use it on a daily basis. I'm not really sure. But once he showed me and how easy it was, I was so excited because I had the control and I could set the zones versus the meter telling me, and I'm like, well, how close is it? Because I don't know if you remember, but the last video we did, the meter told, the handheld Seconic told me it would be 28400 shutter at 800 ISO. So it was, and it would have been fine in the scan. I would have brought it up, but I like having the control and to know, like, or I like having the control of what the exposure is going to be down to the zone. And I think this is a little more accurate, although that I've used the Seconic forever and I've found it to be fine. It's just, I like this meter a little bit more and I can do what I need to without altering. Like some people will take that meter and instead of doing 800 ISO, they'll do 640 or 400 even, and they'll use it that way. And that's fine. As long as you get consistent results and use the meter consistently, you can find what works and go with that. It's just once I figured out how this meter worked, I was really pumped about it. So let's just go go through some of these. So after shooting her, I was like, wow, we have to get her on the next Long Live Film workshop. So if you guys don't know, we do a workshop. Well, we did one workshop, and it was a few years ago. And with COVID, it kind of screwed us up. But we are in the early stages of planning Long Live Film 2. So we're really excited about that. And Hannah agreed to be there to shoot. So this is actually a Frontier scan. And I'm not going to go into the differences in this video, but I did want to see just like how the Frontier scan those, just because it's always fun to see the differences. But these are all Noritsu. Let me go back to here. So we have this one and this one. So that's Frontier, I can already tell you, and Noritsu. And the reason why it kind of moves like that is because I had to physically put the film into the Frontier, so I probably got it all crooked. So, but there's a couple of tonal differences, but I don't want to get in that in this video. I know I said I wouldn't, but
we have another question.
All right.
Alice Dickman asked about the meter itself. Did you add the Ansel Adams zones to the spot meter, or did they come on there?
It's funny. I'm not sure if they come on it or not, but a lot of the ones I've seen actually have it on there. If you go to eBay and you look for it, well, I remember a few years ago when I was looking, some had them and some didn't, but more had them that didn't, if that makes sense. I don't know about now because this was, 5 years ago or maybe longer than that. But if not, it's a very easy thing to put on. But I do believe I don't know. I don't know. But either way, it wouldn't be hard to put one on if not. But it really helps, as you can tell in this diagram. It really helps to know kind of what. Hey, go back to the meter real quick and her side by side if you don't mind. So it just really helps that all these kind of coincide with each other. It's just a really great way to know exactly what you're getting out of your negatives. And that's the most important thing to me, is having the control and making sure that not overexpose too much, but also meter for the shadow. So with digital, you have to worry about blowing your highlights. In film, you don't. So, but with film, you have to worry about underexposing because of how much like grain could pop out and how much like digital noise, well, not digital noise, but noise will show up in the digital scan when you're trying to pump those out too much. So if you notice, I'm going to zoom in real close to her hair and let that load. But there is tons of detail in the hair, just so much detail. And that's what I want. I want to make sure that I don't crush that to where it's like just solid, just, black in there. It's like a real muddy. And so I make sure that I get all the detail. And this is medium format 6.7. So the sharpness is just insane. So as you can tell by these hairs, I just wanted to make sure all the detail was there and there was nothing crushed and muddy. And the highlights, if you notice, they're just all there and they're really nice and they compress really well. There's nothing like blown out where it's just gone and just blocks of white. I mean, it's pretty hot right here, but it's fine. It looks good. So metering is so important when it comes to getting accurate negatives that we can pull great scans from.
Another question from the comments, Josh. Marco Antonietti asked about, he said that they're using their digital camera as a spot meter.
Yeah. Okay.
So any remarks that you have on that, but also if you've heard anything about the Reveni Labs spot meter that's in development, if you've heard anything about that.
No, they sent me one of their other meters that was really cool. It would be great to have a really small spot meter that you can carry with you. And as far as using your digital camera, I think that's awesome. When I first started, I would do the exact same thing, but I would just make sure that when you're looking at the preview of the shot that you took on the back of your camera, make sure that the histogram make sure it looks a little more overexposed than it would if you were going with that digital shot. Meaning, make sure that it looks a little more blown out, not insane, but just enough to where you're like, that's a little too much light for me for a digital shot, and they'll be perfect for film. But using the spot meter in the camera is a great way to kind of see immediate results. When I first figured out what a spot meter was, I put my 5D on a spot meter mode and I walked around and I was, kind of metering for different spots of scenes, landscapes and whatnot to kind of find where it would fall into the shot. And it really does help to kind of learn how spot metering works. But my only concern is that just because it looks good on your digital back, like on the back of your camera, it's not going to necessarily translate. I would just make sure to hit it with a little more light, and you would get a good exposure in your film. So, yeah. Any other questions before we go? Okay, cool. So, yeah, I love how these came out, and what's really cool is once I metered for this shot, I didn't have to think about metering again during the whole shoot, which kind of made me forget about all the technical side. And I could just focus on her expression, her hair, how she was standing or sitting, and just all that. So once I metered, I could just forget about it. So I just love that part of it. I could just let go of that side of it and that side of my brain, and just say, make it look awesome or make it look pretty. But our studio, I don't know if you could tell, but there's just a wall of light coming in, and that really, really does add a whole nother level of just that beautiful light coming in. Really, really helps with the film images and how much light just wraps around her whole body. So great light is definitely key to making these work. But again, all right, so thank y'all for watching. I hope this clears up some stuff. The last video we did, we wanted to kind of do all this in one, but I think we want to do more live videos. So if you guys want to write us an email or put it in the comments, what film stock you want to see, what camera you want to see shoot, and we plan on shooting more stuff in the studio and go over metering with different film types, black and white, whatever, all the different stocks and different camera types. And we can do this, sit down and look at the images and how they differ from each other. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. I'm Josh with Indie Film Lab, and long live film.